Welcome. Whether it be your first time, your last time, thank you for being here this time with me. I'm your host, AP. This is Timeouts and Tangents. I can't thank you guys enough for being here with me today. This is a wonderful Wednesday, right? Wonderful Wednesday. It's a little chilly outside, but it's starting to heat up. Weather's starting to turn, get us back into the warmer weather. But what makes this Wednesday even more wonderful, I'll tell you. We're 6 days away from spring football. LSU football takes the field for spring training starting Tuesday, March 24th. And then we're that much closer. The official start of the Lane Kiffin era on the field begins on Tuesday. But before we really get to the breaking down of the roster and position battles, I want to talk about the coaching staff because I'm going to spend the next few days leading into spring talking about certain position groups and position battles I think are going to be pivotal. Players I expect to make some noise, like Landon Clark. I think Landon Clark's probably going to surprise a lot of people, coaches included. But I really want to get into this coaching staff because I think this coaching staff is more elite, or has the potential to become elite than what we are giving it the credit that it deserves. Because there's a lot of cohesion on this staff. And I know it may be the first time that this staff has been put together at LSU. However, this is not the first time for a lot of these coaches, especially on the offensive side of the ball, to be coaching together. So let's get it started. Of course, Lane Kiffin is the head coach, and we'll get to Lane in a little while. But Lane is the head coach of your Fighting Tigers for LSU. On his staff, on the offensive side of the ball, you have Joe Cox, a tight end coach, right? And he's also the co OC. The designation is kind of important, and it's also a way to get him some more money. He was a co OC at Ole Miss as well. He's never been a head coach at any level, but he was a quarterback at Georgia in the early 2000s. Started a full season, ho hum season. Georgia was pretty mid that year, but he was solid. He was okay. He wasn't terrible, but he was a starting coach, a starting quarterback in the SEC. So he has experience speaking to that level, playing the position, and having a feel for the game. He was a GA at Colorado State and then became the tight end coach there from 2016 to 2019. He was a wide receivers coach at South Carolina in 2020, and the tight ends coach at Charlotte. Then he was the tight end coach at Bama from 2022 to 2023. Then in 2024, Lane pulled him over to Ole Miss, and now he's following Lane over here to LSU. Now, the biggest recruit that Joe Cox has to his name is Cade Odom, the current tight end at Ole Miss. It's pretty solid. And I think that what we're going to see his impact be on this team specifically will be with Trey Green and the inline blocking and usage within the running game. It's something that I know Trey has been working on since he's got on campus. And it's not to say that he's going to be a primary blocking tight end, but there will be formations that you use him in to block during run plays, so that way the defense doesn't know what's going on all the time. Now, the next coach I want to talk about is Joe Houston, special teams coordinator for your Fighting Tigers. Not too much on Joe Houston. The most notable thing about Joe that I can find is the fact that he follows your boy on Twitter. So get like Joe and follow the at on Twitter and stay up to date. Joe is doing it, so you do it too. But the but Joe Houston was a special teams analyst at Florida last season, and Florida had a pretty solid special teams last year too. So that's a good thing. We need somebody who's got some SEC experience. Our special teams has been a mess since Brian Kelly took set his foot on campus. Opportunity to really get our special teams to be consistent at any level. So having somebody who has that experience in the SEC is going to be good. And I'm excited to see what Joe Houston does for LSU. The next coach I really want to talk about, and I really, really, really want to dive into for a quick second. It's two. Two that I want to dive into. I want to get to James Craig because I think James Craig is probably the most interesting coach on this staff, just because of the ties that he has. But let's talk about Sawyer Jordan, your inside receivers coach. Sawyer Jordan graduated from Clemson, where he served as a student assistant while he was there from the 2013 seasons through through the 2018 season. And he graduated from Clemson, hence the student assistant part. After he left Clemson at the end of the 2018 season, at the end of the 2018 school year, when he graduated, he became an offensive quality control coach for Billy Napier at the ULL Raging Cajuns. So we're talking about a guy who is very familiar with Louisiana. And I didn't realize that about Sawyer Jordan when he first was introduced to be following Lane to LSU. Very, very, very intriguing. Um, the fact that you have a guy who was on staff with Billy, coached Kyron, and is now here at LSU. That's pretty special. But you also get to see the development that he's had. And clearly, I mean, this is going to be the 2026 season, so it's not his only stop. After Billy took the job in after Billy Napier took the job in Florida, Sawyer went on to be a grad assistant for USF, University of South Florida, where there he was promoted to be an offensive analyst. He served there from 20 for 3 seasons, the 20 season, 21 season, 22 season. The 2023 season, he went on to be an offensive analyst for Coastal Carolina. And then in 2024 and 2025, he was a senior analyst and became the inside receivers coach for Lane at Ole Miss. I didn't realize that Sawyer had those Louisiana ties. That's going to make recruiting for him a little bit easier, even though I know he's not one of the off field coaches. I think I can't. I'm gonna have to look into that because everybody on this staff has a title, and there's only a certain amount of coaches that can actually go out and recruit. So I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit more just to see. I think if anything, when you're looking at receivers and people going out to recruit, I think that's gonna probably fall on George McDonald, who we're gonna get here in a second. Um, the George McDonald hire is, for me, probably sneaky the best receivers coach in the country. Just because of his experience and the players that he was able to work around. I mean, George McDonald worked with Greg Jennings, Josh Cribbs when he had that electrifying season in Cleveland. Yeah, that was George McDonald as a receivers coach for the Browns. He was a coach at Minnesota, coach at Ball State, where he was a GA. He was Northern Illinois wide receivers coach. He was a tight end coach at Stanford in 2004. He was an OC at Western Michigan from '05 to '06. Wide receivers coach, passing game coordinator at Miami. Assistant head coach, OC in Syracuse. Wide receivers coach at NC State, co-OC at NC State. Assistant head coach and wide receivers coach at Illinois in his alma mater. George McDonald is a solid coach. I think he's probably one of the better coaches on this staff. He's the coach. Like I know, Cortez Hankton gets a lot of buzz for being out there. You know, he gets a lot of name recognition for having some big time recruits. When looking at George McDonald's notable recruits, Caleb Cunningham comes up, Micah Crowell, Porter Rooks. Not Malik Elzy. Not a lot of like breakout names, right? So when I say that I think he's the best wide receivers coach, I'm thinking about development. Look at what Lane Kiffin and their offense was able to do with the weapons that they had. A lot of these guys you didn't hear of. I mean, look at what they did with Trey Harris, right? Like I'm excited. I'm excited to see what George McDonald is going to do at LSU with the receivers that the state produces. Think about for a second a Jabari Mack, a Philip Wright, the development that those type of guys will be able to get their hands on now, the tutelage that they're gonna have from both Sawyer Jordan and especially George McDonald. Like I'm excited about that. I am excited about that. So just from we've covered inside receivers, tight ends, special teams. It's like that's elite. That's solid right there. It's an improvement for sure over where we were last year. So let's look into your running back coach, Kevin Smith, who a lot of us are very familiar with. Kevin was the running back for UCF in 2004 to 2007. He was drafted in the third round, so he's got experience in playing in the NFL in 2008. He was drafted in the 2008 draft. But he went back to coaching in 2015. He was an interim at UCF. He was the quality control administrator in 2016. Then he went to Florida Atlantic from 2017 to 2019. Who was the head coach there? Lane Kiffin. And then he's been with Lane Kiffin almost ever since, outside of 2 seasons. Three. No. 2 seasons. 2020 and 2021 When Lane took over the running or took over Ole Miss, he was there. He took one season and went to Miami in 2022 and then came back to Ole Miss from 2023. And now they both make the move to LSU for the 2026 season. Look at what he was able to do with Quinshon Judkins, even though Quinshon Judkins ended up going to Ohio State. Look at the development that Keywan Lacey just had. You think Caden Durham is not going to do his thing? Like Caden Durham's not going to get better? I think Kevin Smith is going to unlock a Caden Durham. I think Kevin Smith is going to elevate a Harlem Berry. I think Kevin Smith is going to round out a Dylan Jones. But then look at it from this aspect too. He's a recruiter. A lot of us in Louisiana forget Trevante Citizen. He committed to Miami. The primary recruiter was Kevin Smith. Mark Fletcher, who just went off at Miami. Kevin Smith. Quinshon Judkins. Kevin Smith. And he was the primary for these guys. So if we think for a second that it's going to stop where it is, it's not. Expect your running back room to take a giant step forward. I mean, a giant step forward. I think we're going to see, we haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher at LSU since Clyde. And I'm not saying we're going to get that this year just because of how deep the room is between those three. But I can see us having 1,000 total yards coming out of the running back room finally. We are long overdue for that. So when you pair the running back coach with the receivers coach and the development that they can present, that is elevating your offense to another level. Especially for those two specific skill groups who touch the football just as much as the quarterback. That's massive. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the wide receiver room, obviously, because like I said, LSU produces wide receivers in spades. I'm looking to see that take another step. We kind of had a little bit of a fall off this year just because of how sluggish the offense was. But I'm really looking forward to seeing this running back room get back to the running back rooms of old, the running back rooms of consistency. And even in 19, when Clyde was going off for the stats that he had, you still had other running backs in there that were very talented. John Emery was a true freshman, 5-star, who was able to see some playing time on the field and had explosive moments. I want us to get back to that. I want us to get back to that. And I think the coaching is what was holding that back. Now, when we talk about another important coach, you have to look at the quarterback coach as well. And out of all the coaches on the offensive side of the ball, especially considering, Lane Kiffin is the head coach and Charlie Weiss Jr. is the OC, I don't think that the quarterback coach is that much important. Is as important as they would be in any other system. However, Dane Stevens coming over from Ole Miss to LSU after seeing what they were able to do with Jackson Dart while he was there, it's pretty good. Dane Stevens was the senior analyst and assistant quarterbacks coach from 2022 to 2023 at Ole Miss. 2024, he was the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach at West Georgia. Now, understand that he was also an offensive lineman at USC. So we're talking about an O lineman that's able to teach some quarterbacks. Guy's smart. He's able to see the game. So I think that this is going to be a solid hire. Once again, the development piece for the quarterbacks for me will come from Lane and Charlie. Um, Definitely getting the system down right, putting the guys in place, and getting the reads and feels and timing for the quarterbacks. And I mean, look, Dane Stevens having experience with Lane already, having been with Lane for 2 seasons already, is a major, major plus. So Joe Cox has been with Lane since 2024. George McDonald has been with Lane forever. Kevin Smith has been with Lane forever. Dane Stevens has a history with Lane. Sawyer Jordan has been with Lane since 2024. All of these guys have a history with Lane. So we've gone over everybody on the offensive side of the ball, but two. And these two probably have the longest history with Lane. And I'm going to save Charlie Weiss Jr. for last, but I want to go over James Craig because James Craig has a history with Lane Kiffin that I was not fully aware of. So James Craig played at Colorado State and he was an offensive lineman. He was an all conference player in 1995. He was a grad assistant from 97 to 99 at Colorado State. He was a D line coach for several seasons at two different stops at Colgate and Idaho from 2000 to 2006. James Craig was a D line coach. So he has experience, even though now it's been 20 years since he's done it, coaching the other side of the ball. But this is where things get interesting. From 2007 to 2008, James Craig was an assistant O line coach for the Oakland Raiders. The Oakland Raiders. He broke into the NFL with the Raiders and who was the head coach at the time? The current head coach of your Fighting Tigers of LSU. So these two have a history going all the way back to 2007. But it doesn't just stop there. 2007 and 2008 were the two seasons Lane Kiffin served as the head coach at the Raiders. We know he was let go, and then he took the job at Tennessee. Who was his offensive line coach? James Craig. James Craig then will become the offensive line coach at USC. Who was the head coach? Lane Kiffin. He would serve as Lane's offensive line coach from 2009 all the way to 2013. So you want to talk about familiarity, cohesion within the offense? You got it from offensive line, running backs, wide receivers, and your quarterbacks. Nobody on this staff, with the exception of Eric Wolford, is new to dealing with Lane Kiffin. That is ridiculous. That's insane. Lane Kiffin was able to come in here, hire a bunch of guys that he's already familiar with. But even better, they're already familiar with him. They know the standard, they know the expectation, they know what he is looking for out of his offense. They don't have to learn a new system. They're not learning what to coach right now. Think about that for a second. When Brian Kelly got to LSU, Kevin Smith, oh my God, Frank Wilson had never coached with Brian Kelly. He never been with Mike Denbrock. They had to learn each other. Cortez Hankton came from Georgia. This staff is walking in the door with multiple years of working with the head guy already. With multiple years of them working with each other already. In that sense, James Craig and Eric Wolford are the only two who haven't worked with the rest of the group. Although James Craig has worked with Lane and has worked with Lane longer than anybody else. James Craig was there during the darkest time of Lane Kiffin's coaching career. Think about that. You want to talk about loyalty? He stuck with his guy. And then James Craig, once that fell off, he was at LSU for the greatest single football season the world has ever seen on a college athletic field. So now you get to put those two things together. Because not only does James Craig understand the expectation for Lane Kiffin, he also understands the expectations for the three letters right here. That means a lot. That means so much. And that goes understated. When you don't have to get a feel for your coaches, when you don't have to worry about the drama, the back talking, when you've already got relationships embedded with each other, it makes transitioning to the football field that much easier. Does it mean every day is going to be sunshine and rainbows? No. You got a bunch of guys who have egos, who are alpha males, who are going to do their best to dominate conversations and make sure that their points get across. But they all already come in the door with a mutual respect for one another because they've already have a past history. And I think that this is even more important for the offensive line piece because look at how bad the offensive line was for LSU, and look at how good the offensive line play is and has been for Lane Kiffin. Now, granted, Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss offensive line coach has remained at Ole Miss, and he was very successful. But anytime you can get a former Nick Saban offensive line coach and then put him with an offensive line coach that you had coaching with you for almost 10 years through your hardest times, sign me up for that any day of the week. Sign me up for that any day of the week. That piece right there is so important. And that has me so excited. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this offense is going to bring and how the offensive line is going to respond just from the coaching aspect of it. The development of guys like a Western Davis, seeing Braylon Moore take another step, adding in a Jordan Seaton who, for as great as he is, can get better in run blocking, adding a mean and nasty Alu Ba with Eric Walford and James Craig. Come on, man. Come on, man. That's going to be fire. That is going to be fire. And then let's get to the last but not least on the offensive side of the ball. We're going to do the defensive staff another day, but we're going to do this is all offense. And then we're going to do a full breakdown on Lane one day, probably on Monday next week, going into spring. Charlie Weiss Jr., your offensive coach. Now, Weiss is only 32 years old. Coach Charles is only 32 years old. He was born to coach. He was working on Charlie Weiss Sr.'s staff at Notre Dame as a teenager, holding up play cards. He began his coaching career at the age of 18, working as an offensive QC coach at Florida under Charlie Weiss. And that was when Charlie was the offensive coordinator. When Charlie was named the head coach at Kansas, Charlie Jr. was on the staff as the team manager. Graduated from Kansas because that's where his dad was coaching. He was a volunteer assistant during in the training camp intern with the Patriots in 14. And then he joined the staff at Alabama as an offensive analyst in 2015. That's important. In 2015, who was the offensive coordinator at Alabama? Lane Kiffin. Do you see how all of this is connected? Lane Kiffin doesn't have a big coaching tree because he keeps all of his guys. All of his guys want to stay with him. So clearly, he must be doing something right as a head coach. In 2015, he was the OC. He left Alabama. In 2015, Lane was the OC. Charlie Weiss Jr. would leave Alabama to be an offensive analyst for the Falcons in 2017, and then in 2018 and 2019, he would join Lane Kiffin at Florida Atlantic. He was a tight ends coach. He became the offensive coordinator very soon and coached quarterbacks. That's another reason why I said Dane Stevens coaching quarterbacks as the quarterback coach isn't as impactful because you have Charlie Weiss Jr., who has a history of coaching the quarterbacks everywhere he's been. After 2019, he didn't leave to go to Florida. After 2019, he didn't leave to go to Ole Miss. He then instead went to South Florida to be the OC and quarterback coach for Jeff Scott. But that was only for 2 seasons because Lane would then pull him back in 2022 at Ole Miss, where then Ole Miss and the offense were going to run with Jackson Dart as their quarterback. And then here we are today in 2026 with Charlie Weiss Jr. being the offensive coordinator at LSU. This offensive staff is already used to each other. And they're already used to coaching with Lane. This is going to be such a fun spring. And we're probably not even going to know what's going on because I don't think that the media is going to be able to get in there. Doesn't mean my expectations are not tempered because they're not. Well, it doesn't mean my expectations are tempered because they're not. I expect for spring to be fun. Information will get out one way or the other. But this coaching staff only has to get used to LSU. They don't have to get used to each other. And that should mean something. I can't wait for this season. Tweaking. Just because we have a better coaching staff already. The proof is in the pudding because they were already all together. And it wasn't just one season that they were together. It's been multiple seasons. You add it up, you're talking about you're talking about a total of 20 years maybe of total coaching staff experience between them, like together. I mean, Lane and Charlie have a history that goes back 10 years. James Craig and Lane have a history that goes back to 2007. That's half my life. I wish I'd have realized that when they first hired him. I just thought it was a damn good hire. Like Lane knew James Craig was here. Hell, James Craig sued LSU and won, and we still brought him back. No, it was because he already coached with Lane Kiffin. He coached with them in Oakland. So between George McDonald, Charlie Weiss Jr., James Craig, Sawyer Jordan, Joe Houston is the only, he's a special teams coordinator, so he is new, but like all of these coaches have history with Lane Kiffin. And that says a lot, man. That says so much. And when you don't have to worry about building that cohesiveness between the staff amongst each other, it takes one less bit of stress off your plate. One less thing that they got to overcome, and they can just get to coaching the guys and getting them ready. A hurdle is already cleared. And it kind of makes you want to take some time during the off season, like after spring, and look at the SEC, like the new coaches coming into the SEC, to see if this level of cohesiveness that they have on their staff, if any other staff has that. I mean, from your tight end coach all the way down to your inside wide receivers coach, y'all have multiple years. And oh, not to mention James Craig is a run game specialist for LSU. So yeah, your running game's gonna definitely get better. Look, we're gonna go ahead and wrap on the offensive staff right now. I am gonna come back in a little while. I want to say maybe around 9 o'clock tonight. I want to talk tonight about the Saints, about Alvin Kamara, the addition of Ty Chandler, what the expectations could be for them in the draft, how the draft might fall. Um, there are a lot of good things going on around New Orleans. Even the Pelicans are winning. So, gonna do a little NOLA night on Wednesday tonight. So come join me 9 o'clock tonight. Thank you for everybody watching right now. Thank you for all those on X, all in the chat right now on YouTube. Cannot thank you guys enough. Cannot thank you enough. This is your boy AP. I'm out. See y'all later.